Guys, this might be the cheapest survival lesson you ever learn, and it could literally save your life. Everyone talks about $500 bug-out bags and gear that looks like it came from a sci-fi movie, but when the grid goes down, it's not always the high-tech stuff that saves you. It's the forgotten basics, the 7 items you probably walked past at the dollar store. Because when a crisis hits, it's not about what's expensive, it's about what actually works. Look, prepping doesn't have to bankrupt you. The truth is, most of the gear that actually keeps people alive when systems collapse costs less than your last drive-through order. Today, I'm breaking down 7 low-cost survival items that are hiding in plain sight, items that are cheap now, but priceless during a blackout, supply chain failure, or full-scale collapse. We're talking multi-use tools, off-grid power hacks, silent lifesavers, all under the radar, all budget-friendly, and all tested by preppers who know what works after the shelves are empty. If you're prepping on a budget or just want real gear that doesn't rely on batteries, apps, or wishful thinking, this is the list. Let's jump in. Quick heads up, if you're into real-world prepping without the hype, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell sada. We're dropping weekly breakdowns of budget-friendly survival gear that actually works when it matters most. No fluff, no fear-mongering. Just smart prepping for smart people. Number 1. Old eyeglass frames. Most people toss them in a drawer. Some throw them away. But in a survival situation, old eyeglass frames, especially the metal ones, quietly become one of the most underrated tools in your entire stash. Let's start with the basics. These frames are made of incredibly durable, flexible wire. If you've ever struggled to bend one out of shape, you know how resilient they are. And that wire? It's a goldmine. In a grid-down world, you're going to need cordage substitute, something that can twist, bind, or even lock into place when paracord or duct tape just won't cut it. That thin frame wire can repair zippers, reinforce torn clothing, rig fishing hooks, or even secure a splint in place if you're dealing with a bone injury in the field. But here's where things get really creative. Those temple arms, the part that rests over your ears, are usually straight and narrow, and in many frames, they're made of stainless steel or aluminum. That means you can sharpen them down into mini pry tools or emergency blades if absolutely necessary. Not your first choice, but in a long-term bug-out situation, you want everything that can multitask. Even a tiny hook made from frame wire can create a snare for small game, and in a barter economy, one frame could be taken apart and traded as 5 or 6 separate survival tools. Now let's talk fire starting. If you've got a frame with a reflective surface, you can polish it and actually use it to reflect sunlight and ignite dry tinder. Not easy, but totally doable with patience and bright conditions. That's more than you can say for most plastic-based survival gear. Need to reinforce your bug-out bag's torn strap? Want to hang an improvised lantern or anchor a food sack high off the ground? A bent eyeglass frame can do all of that. Wrap one arm around a tree limb or a tent pole, and now you've got a hook. Twist it into a gear loop, lash 2 together for extra strength. The uses are endless. And here's the kicker. These things weigh next to nothing. You can carry 3 or 4 old pairs in your bag without noticing the difference. And unlike high-end multi-tools, they don't scream, "Loot me," in a crisis. Moral of the story? Don't trash your old frames, repurpose them. Because when it all goes sideways, it's the ordinary, forgotten things that suddenly become the most valuable. Number 2, empty coffee cans. It's just an empty coffee can, right? Toss it in the trash and forget about it. But if you're prepping smart, this garbage is actually a survival powerhouse, and you'll regret not saving every single one. First off, let's talk storage. Whether it's ground coffee, instant, or even powdered creamer, these cans are designed to be airtight. That means they're perfect for stockpiling dry goods like rice, beans, flour, oats, even salt or sugar. And because they're sturdy, especially the older metal ones, they can take a beating and still protect your food from moisture, bugs, or rodents. A couple of these stacked on a shelf and you've got your own low-cost food vault. But we're not done. In an off-grid emergency, coffee cans double as cooking pots. Fill it with water, set it over an open flame or hot coals, and you've got a makeshift boiler critical for disinfecting water or cooking dehydrated meals. You'd be shocked how many modern pots aren't fire-safe anymore. But a metal coffee can? That thing was built to handle heat. Need light at night? Drop a candle inside and cut small ventilation holes. Congratulations, you just made a windproof lantern. Need to signal someone from a distance? Polish the metal and use it as a makeshift mirror. Need to stash valuables, fire-starting kits, or meds? Snap the lid on and bury it waterproof, weatherproof, and completely low profile. And if you've ever faced a rat or bug problem in a food supply, you'll appreciate this next part. Coffee cans make excellent pest-proof traps. Fill one with bait, punch a hole in the lid, and drop it in your pantry or tent, a cheap insurance policy against losing precious supplies to critters. Plus, in a barter economy, presentation matters. Show up with a rusty Ziploc, and people might hesitate. But offer clean rice or powdered milk in a sealed, stackable, reusable container? That's professionalism even in collapse. And the best part? They're free. You're already drinking the coffee. Just rinse and stash. Every can you throw away is a missed prepping opportunity. So before you dismiss that Folgers tub or Nescafe tin, ask yourself, if the world stopped tomorrow, would I rather have space in the trash or an all-purpose, nearly indestructible survival tool? Number 3, metal clothes hangers. They sit quietly in your closet, holding your shirts in place. But in a survival scenario, those thin metal hangers become one of the most versatile, low-cost tools you can repurpose instantly, and trust me, most people never see it coming. Let's start with their core utility: wire. This isn't some fragile plastic twist, it's strong, malleable steel. And in a grid-down world, malleable steel equals possibility. You can bend, cut, twist, and reshape it into dozens of functional survival tools. Snares for catching small animals? Done. Fishing hooks? Just sharpen one end and bend the curve. Need a makeshift skewer for cooking over fire? Straighten it out and you're set. But hangers shine brightest when you're building or fixing things on the fly. Shelter falling apart? Use the wire to reinforce your tarp grommets. Need to suspend a pod over fire? Twist a few together and fashion a hanging frame. Something break on your backpack? Thread the hanger through and lock it in place. This is crisis engineering, and your closet is full of the raw material. And don't forget communication and defense. A straightened hanger doubles as an emergency antenna for FM, AM radios. In remote zones, extending your range by even a few feet could mean the difference between silence and critical intel. In a worst-case scenario, a sharpened hanger is a last-resort self-defense weapon. Not ideal, but better than bare hands. Hangers can even serve first-aid purposes. Use the wire to secure a splint, fasten a tourniquet, or bend it into a finger brace. You're not going to win any awards for elegance, but survival isn't about style, it's about function under pressure. Now here's the kicker. In a barter economy, hangers are currency. Why? Because wire is rare. It's compact, portable, and doesn't spoil, and when people need to fix or build something, your stash of hangers becomes incredibly valuable. Bundle them, tie them together, and offer them as modular DIY kits for trade. So next time you clean out your closet, think twice before you trash those bent-up hangers. Straighten them, stash them, and thank yourself later, because in a collapse, that ugly tangle of metal could be the difference between chaos and control. Number 4, old-fashioned manual can openers. In the prepping world, there's a strange obsession with tactical knives, hatchets, and multi-tools, but here's the truth. When the power's out, the grocery shelves are bare, and you're digging into your emergency food stash. Nothing, and I mean nothing, replaces a basic manual can opener. Now, I'm not talking about those sleek electric ones sitting on your countertop. I mean the old-school hand-crank kind, small, metal, and often forgotten in the back of a kitchen drawer. In an economic collapse or power outage, this unassuming tool suddenly becomes a top-tier asset. Why? Because canned food is survival gold, shelf-stable, calorie-dense, and everywhere, but it's useless without access. And you'd be shocked how many people stockpile cans and forget the one tool that actually opens them. Let's break down the logic. Electric openers are dead weight in a blackout. Multi-tools with built-in openers can work, but they're slow, messy, and often dangerous when your hands are cold, tired, or injured. Manual openers, on the other hand, are efficient, safe, and require zero training. Even kids can use them with a little guidance. And here's something most people don't realize. There are dozens of different can shapes and lid thicknesses depending on the brand, region, or era of manufacture. A proper manual can opener adjust to all of them. You might not think that matters until you're staring at a vintage government-issue ration can with a welded rim and no pull tab. But survival isn't just about food access, it's about morale. The ability to open a warm can of chili or fruit cocktail without slicing your fingers or making a mess? That's comfort under pressure. It keeps routines normal and stress levels low, which matters more than you think when everything else feels out of control. Need more value? A manual opener also helps reduce waste. You can safely remove lids for reuse as fire starters, digging tools, or even makeshift cooking surfaces. And if you've ever had to clean up a spilled can using a rock or pocket knife, you already know, precision matters. Now imagine this. The collapse has hit, and you're bartering with neighbors. You've got a functioning opener, and they don't. Suddenly, you're not just trading food, you're trading access. That simple tool becomes leverage. Offer to open cans in exchange for a cut, or trade the opener outright for something far more valuable. In a world where function is king, tools like these become currency. So don't overlook it. Grab 2, maybe 3. One for your go bag, one for your kitchen, and one to stash in a sealed container. They cost under $10 and last for decades. In a collapse, when modern tech fails and even knives can fall short, that tiny, clunky, hand-powered can opener might just be your MVP. Number 5. Old shower curtains. Yep, you read that right. That stained, semi-rigid plastic sheet hanging in your bathroom right now? It's actually one of the most underrated multifunctional survival items you probably already own, and when crisis hits, you'll wish you hadn't tossed it. Let's break it down. Old shower curtains, especially the vinyl or PIVA ones, are water-resistant, wind-resistant, and flexible. That combination makes them perfect for quick, low-budget emergency shelter construction. Lost your tent fly? Cut your curtain and drape it over a tarp or rope structure. Need to keep your supplies dry during a storm? Wrap them up and seal the edges with duct tape or rope. Boom, improvised dry bag. Now here's the kicker. Most shower curtains are large enough to cover a twin bed. That's a lot of square footage to work with. In survival, square footage equals protection. Ground cover, roof barrier, wall liner, window blackout sheet, one old curtain can do it all. And it doesn't stop at shelter. These things make excellent solar still liners. Dig a pit, place a container in the middle, stretch the curtain over the top, and weigh it down with a rock. The heat from the sun evaporates moisture from the earth, which condenses on the plastic and drips into your container. That's DIY water purification, using nothing but the ground and your shower curtain. Also, it's a sanitary lifesaver. Public restrooms? Gone. Clean surfaces? Scarce. Lay down a curtain as a sterile prep space for first aid, or fold and tape it into a makeshift biohazard barrier for dealing with waste. You can even use it as a body wrap to prevent hypothermia. It won't insulate, but it'll trap your body's heat and block the wind. Here's what most preppers miss. Gear gets wet. Your blanket, your firewood, your backup clothes, once soaked, they become liabilities. A waterproof shield like a shower curtain isn't glamorous, but it's brutally effective. And unlike heavy-duty tarps, it folds down into a flat, flexible sheet that can be stuffed into any pack or side pocket. And yes, it can even be bartered. Most people don't think of them as valuable, but in a long-term situation, water resistance becomes a high-demand feature. Someone needs a greenhouse lining, a dry sleeping surface, a backup roof patch, you've got it. Bottom line, that dingy old curtain might be your best friend when it all goes sideways. Don't wait till the next storm or supply chain failure. Clean it, fold it, pack it. And remember, survival isn't about how cool your gear looks, it's about what actually works. Number 6, large drinking glass mason jar. It looks ordinary, maybe even boring. But that simple glass jar sitting in your kitchen can turn into one of the most practical, low-cost survival tools you'll ever use. Don't underestimate it. First, think food. These jars are airtight, lightweight, and long-lasting. Store dried beans, rice, grains, seeds, powdered milk, or even homemade spice mixes. The lid seals moisture and bugs out, and when you rotate your stock, just clean, refill, reseal. No plastic degrade, no chemicals. That makes them far more sustainable than disposable containers or cheap bags. Now, the magic starts. 1. Water disinfection. Place a jar filled with water in direct sunlight for several hours to kill pathogens. A primitive but effective solar purification method. A cover keeps bugs and debris out, yet lets UV rays in, making the jar itself act as a mini solar still. 2. Fire magic. Fill the jar with water and place it near a flame to create a makeshift candle lantern. The water acts as a heat buffer, preventing the glass from cracking. Add a bit of oil or wax to illuminate a small area silently and safely. 3. Emergency funnel or scoop. Need to pour grains, powder, or slop. Cut the shape, invert the lid, and boom, you've got a scoop or funnel without plastic. Because in survival, function, fashion, 4. Food prep and fermenting. Use it to ferment vegetables, like sauerkraut, sprout seeds and legumes, or brew herbal concoctions for medicinal use. It keeps contaminants out and gas release controlled. This turns ordinary pantry ingredients into health-boosting resources. 5. Barter container. In barter economies, presentation matters. A clean jar sealed with something edible seems professional, even luxurious. You can trade vacuum-sealed rice grains in tins or repurposed jars. It speaks value in times when trust is currency. 6. Signaling tool. Fill the jar with reflective objects, coins, foil scraps, or shiny stones, and swing it slowly to catch sunlight. Even a small light flash can attract attention in daylight conditions. Plus, the lid makes it easy to hang or attach to a pole. 7. Weight, balance, and ballast. You ever need a doorstop, a small weight, or even a makeshift hammer? A jar filled with sand, pebbles, or water becomes a multi-purpose tool washer, leveler, anchor. Here's why most people dismiss them. They're common, non-tactical, and easily overlooked. That's the point. In collapse, silent functionality wins. A jar doesn't beep, glow, or brag, but it works. It's reusable, easy to sterilize, and long-lasting, no dressed-up survival gear required. Cost? Often free if you reuse your coffee jar, pickles jar, or store-bought beverage, but you could buy them 12 for a few bucks. And they'll outlive 10 electronic gadgets you'll later regret buying. The only real mistake is ignoring them. If the power is out, supermarkets shut, and traditional gear fails, you'll be glad you've kept those trusty glass jars. Because when everything else stops working, that simple sealed container becomes your food vault, water clarifier, and adaptability agent. Number 7. Cotton t-shirt, old or spare. Most people think of an extra cotton t-shirt as casual backup clothing, comfort wear maybe. But in a crisis, this versatile, low-cost garment quietly becomes one of the most multi-purpose tools you'll ever own. And if it's clean and unused, it can even take on a second life as prep gear. First, let's talk about wound care and filtration. Need clean bandaging? Cut the shirt into strips for dressing wounds. Need to strain debris out of collected water? Tie or wrap fabric around a container to filter crud before boiling. Want to dry a metal tool or wipe grime off gear? Cotton absorbs brilliantly, even when wet. Now for shelter and insulation. In cold conditions, layering t-shirt fabric between blankets or clothing traps a bit of insulating air like a DIY dead air layer. Attach cut sections to poles or tarps to help block wind or shade small areas without buying heavy fabrics. You can even use a whole shirt as a light sunshade or dust barrier in arid environments. Here's where creativity meets survival. Want cordage but have none? Rip the shirt into long, narrow strips, twist into rope, or use as tie-downs for poles, gear, or shelter stakes. Small knots hold surprisingly strong in cotton strips. If needed, they can serve as slings, tourniquets, or even emergency straps for carrying items. Need padding or traction? Fold or crumple fabric into shoes to act as blister cushions, or wrap handles and poles for better grip. They absorb sweat and reduce slipping, especially in hot climates where getting muddy or sweaty is inevitable. What about barter? A fresh, clean cotton shirt becomes actual value in collapse scenarios, especially if it's a decent material. People may trade food, water, or tools in exchange for clean, wearable clothing, especially for babies, children, or sanitation workers. You can also use shirts for sanitation purposes, sanitize containers, line makeshift seats, or wrap unsanitary items before disposal. This item, and yes, it costs nothing if you use one you already own, requires zero training. Everyone knows how to cut, fold, tie, or wear a tea-thrush shirt. Practice small uses now, so that later, in stress or low light, you don't waste energy experimenting. Another often overlooked benefit: morale. Having even just one fresh piece of clothing can lift your spirit, especially when stores are closed and there's no laundry available. Patches cut from clean shirts can refresh worn gear, cover stains or holes, and preserve dignity when scarcity takes over. Final point: long-term durability. Cotton may burn, but it doesn't rot, doesn't need batteries, doesn't leak. Even in basic shelters, you can hang it as a light curtain to minimize dust or sun glare. With some sewing skills, even basic stitches, you can reinforce key points, stitch patchwork, or improvise carry pouches from the shirt material. Let's cut the fluff when the economy collapses. It's not just your bank account that takes a hit. It's your daily routine, your sense of safety, and everything normal that disappears overnight. And in that moment, the only people who make it through aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who prepared before the chaos started. You've just seen 7 low-cost survival items that could make all the difference. They're not tactical toys or overpriced gimmicks. They're real-world, everyday tools, things you can afford, things you probably already own, and most importantly, things that actually work. Now here's the truth. Most people will scroll past this video and do nothing, but a few of you, the smart ones, you'll feel it. That gut-level instinct telling you, this matters. That whisper that says, start now. If that's you, if you're serious about protecting your family, your future, and your freedom, then hit that subscribe button right now. This channel isn't about fear, it's about power. Every week, we break down survival gear, prepping strategies, and real-life scenarios. No fluff, no hype, just straight talk that actually helps. Knowledge is leverage, preparation is power. And subscribing is your first step. Click subscribe, tap the bell, join the people who won't be caught off guard. Be the one who's already one step ahead when everything else falls behind.